Hey guys, it's Mariah here, and today I'm going to be doing my January wrap-up. In the month of January, I read 7 books per se. One was an audio book, one was a short story, one was a novella, and one was a graphic novel. So I did a decent amount of variety type of reading this month, which I'm pretty proud of because I normally stay with normal novels, so I'm pretty excited that it kind of expanded a little bit. So let's get into it. The first thing I read was The Grown Up by Gillian Flynn. This was in my book of the month. I will leave the link for that unboxing down below. This was sent with, I believe, every book of the month. I'm not 100% sure, but they normally send a little small item. It is a short story. It follows, I believe she's an unnamed main character, and I'm just going to read the first line of this. I didn't stop giving handjobs because I wasn't good at it. I stopped giving handjobs because I was the best at it. So there's that. The main character, basically, that was her job. And then she kind of moved over into the area of reading palms. It goes into her backstory a little bit. She didn't have the best time growing up. Her mom kind of taught her how to beg and how to read people to get money out of them. So that's how she was decent with reading palms. And there is a woman that comes in and asks for her palm to be read, and then she kind of convinces her to come into the house and to do like a cleansing of the house because she thinks something's going on with her stepson. And this book is mind twisting. You don't know what's happening. Once you get into the short story, there's like 3 different things that's like, this happened. No, actually, this is what happened. No, actually, this is what happened. And when the ending happens, you still don't know you still don't know the truth. You don't know what actually happened. And it's kind of unsatisfying for me because I'm like, I need to know. I need to know. Darn you, Gillian Flynn. But I get it. I get the gist of it. It's a really interesting take. I did think this was interesting. I don't really have too many complaints about this book, except for the fact that I didn't know what happened. It wasn't like super amazing, but it wasn't bad. It was a really nice short story, and I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars. And then after that, I read Gemina by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. I don't know why I always want to say Amy Kristoff and Jay Kaufman, so I have to look and make sure I say it right. But this is the second book in the Illuminae files. I believe this is going to be a trilogy. The 3rd book is not out yet, but guys, I love this book. I did a review on this. I will leave it linked down below because I love this book. It was so amazing. I think it's not really a review. It's just me rambling on and on and on about how much I love this book. This book follows Hannah and Nick, even though Katie and Ezra, who were the main characters in the first book, are still in it a little bit. It's a little bit different story, and I believe this starts off 4 minutes-ish after the ending of the first book. So I really enjoyed this book. If you have read this book, I do have a spoiler section at the end of my review, so go over there so we can talk about it, because I want to know your opinions on it, because I love this book so much. I don't know what I'm going to do waiting for the 3rd book to come out. I really can't tell you much about this book because I don't want to ruin anything about the first book. But the first book follows Katie and Ezra. They were dating, and the day that Katie breaks up with Ezra, boom, their planet is attacked by this big corporation, and they're running for their lives together. And then this corporation is following them, trying to make sure that they do not get away, to tell everyone what happened. I think in this whole series so far, Hannah is my favorite character. She is a badass. I mean, she has her flaws, obviously, like every character does, but she is awesome. I obviously gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was Everything Everything by Nicola Yoon. This is a contemporary that follows Madeline, who has a disease where basically she is allergic to everything. So she is stuck in her house for almost her whole life. She is 17, so she can't really go outside. Her air has to be circulated. Everyone who comes inside her house has to be contaminated, and they really don't like people touching her because they don't want her to get sick. Madeline is 17 years old, and then a boy moves in next door, and they start IMing and messaging and emailing on the internet, and they start to get feelings for each other, so they start wanting to kind of hang out, and her mom really doesn't want her near him because she doesn't want him to get sick. And it's a cute contemporary with a little bit of a twist in it. I enjoyed this book. I thought it was very interesting. It wasn't a bad book. It wasn't a super amazing book, but I did enjoy it. I guessed something in this book, like close to the ending of it, so it wasn't like a huge punch for me when we found out about it, because I had this bad problem where I guess things when I'm reading books and I need to stop because I'm like, this is what's going to happen. So when that does happen, I'm like, oh, I knew it was going to happen. So I need to like stop thinking and then just let myself be surprised. And I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I do recommend reading this. I do want to read this on. There's also A Star by Nicolayoon that is on my TBR. I was going to read it this month, but I did not get the chance to get to it. The next book I read was Unravel Me by Tahara Mafi. This is the second book in the Shatter Me trilogy. This book series follows Juliet, who I feel like I say this in every video because I talk about one of these books because I'm trying to just finish the series. Anyways, this book follows Juliet, who, if she touches someone, boom, they could die. So she can hurt people or kill them just by touching them. So she kind of has to stay away. This does have a love story, but it also has a lot of different adventure in it. This book, I liked it, but I felt it focused a little bit too much on the love triangle, on the romance. It was just too much focus on it and not enough focus on the plot and the story and the action. I would have liked a little bit more story and would have loved a lot more of Kenji, because Kenji and Juliet's friendship is one of my favorite things. I love Kenji. He's my favorite character in this book by far. Juliet is probably one of my least favorite main characters of any books that I've read. She's just very unlikable. She complains a lot. She like, I don't know. I enjoyed this series, and if it wasn't for Juliet, I think I'd have it a 5 out of 5 stars. I understand why she is that way, and there's a reason for it, but it just nags at me, and I really wish she'd kind of step out of it. So I'm hoping in the third book she's like a little bit less, oh, poor me. But I do enjoy this series. It's a good series, and I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. So I read a novella. I read Fracture Me, which is the second novella in the Shatter Me series. This novella follows Adam right after the second book happens, but it's also kind of the ending of the second book as well, mostly the ending of the second book, which kind of stinks because I already know what happens. It's from Adam's perspective and not Juliet's perspective, but it's the same thing, basically. There's not really much of a difference, and then the part that's not from the book isn't very much either. So I gave this a 2 out of 5 stars. I really didn't get much from it. I felt like it was kind of not anything you need to read. I really do like Destroy Me, which is the first one, which follows Warren after the first book. I really recommend reading that because it kind of gets into Warren's backstory. It gets into his head and it goes into his background. This one with Adam didn't really give us much information about him or the story or anything at all. So I really thought it wasn't pertinent, and I gave it a 2 out of 5 stars. And the last physical book that I read was The Sculptor by Scott McCloud. This is a graphic novel. This follows Daniel, who, I think that's his name. Let me double check. David. Yep, his name is David. This is a graphic novel that follows David, and he's a sculptor. He's kind of down on his luck a little bit, and basically he seems like an alcoholic. And he makes a deal with death. And that deal is he can sculpt anything he wants with just his bare hands, but he only has 200 days to live. So David makes this deal, and he goes into this thing where he sculpts whatever he wants, and he's still struggling. So I do like the fact that he gets what he wants, but he's still struggling with it. And then obviously he meets a girl, and I really liked her character. The girl that he ends up falling for, her name is Meg, and I really liked her as a character. She was very complex in the very few words that she said because it's a graphic novel. There's not a lot to go off other than the dialogue and the pictures, and she's a very complex character. She struggles a lot emotionally, I can tell, and I feel like she struggles from some type of depression. It doesn't really say what kind, but I really enjoyed her as a character because she's just a fun character, and she basically kind of turned David away at first. She's spunky, she's smart, she's creative. I really enjoyed her as a character. David, not so much. Again, he kind of pitied himself a lot, and I don't know what this thing is about main characters and pitying themselves. It's just like, I understand, but come on, guy. I felt like he never really got emotionally better. I did like the moral of the story, and the ending was very interesting, but it was just weird. It wasn't necessarily my style. It wasn't awful weird, but it just wasn't for me, I guess. I did enjoy the story, but some of it just got a little bit not in my comfort zone, I guess. But I did really enjoy the illustrations. Like, if you look at the stuff he sculpted, like, it's so cool. I don't know how I just randomly turned to that page because just I enjoyed the illustrations of it. It was great. I ended up giving this a 3 out of 5 stars. I have never read a graphic novel before, so I think it was a good starter. So if you haven't read a graphic novel and you're looking to pick this one or pick one up, I'd recommend this one. And the last thing I read, I will leave a little picture here for you. And the last thing I read is Six of Crows by Lee Bardugo. This is the first book in a duology. The second book is The Crooked Kingdom. And this is in the Grisha world. I have not read the Grisha trilogy, and I've heard mixed things about if you should read that first or this, but the Grisha trilogy sounds interesting, but the Six of Crows synopsis, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to read this. So I went ahead and I found it on audiobook and I bought it, and it took me a little bit over a month to listen to. It's a 16-hour audiobook, and I'm not super into audiobooks just because I get distracted really easily and I miss what happened, so I have to backtrack. But towards the end of this book, I literally just played it and sat down and listened. This book follows a group of 6 characters. Kaz is basically their leader, and they go on this heist, and some of them are regular people, and some of them are Grisha, which the Grisha in this world have magic, and you follow them going on this heist, and I don't really want to tell you much about that because I don't want to ruin anything for you. But the audiobook, each character that spoke and each chapter that followed a different character had a different voice, so it really helped differentiate between what was going on. My main concern with this was the fact that when they said something, I didn't know if the character was saying it out loud or in their head. So I had to listen to context clues to figure out, oh, did they say that to someone else or think it to themselves. I did enjoy this book. I really enjoyed this book, actually. I plan on, after I finish the audiobook I'm listening to right now, going ahead and listening to that on audiobook as well, because I did enjoy it on audiobook, and I like to have that to listen to in my car and have a different type of thing to read. So I want to listen to Crooked Kingdom soon so I can finish up the duology and see what happens, because I really do enjoy these characters, and I did give this book a 5 out of 5 stars. Now I am in the middle of reading 3 other books. I'm listening to a book on audiobook. I have a book on my Kindle that I'm reading on my phone, and I have a physical book that I'm reading. I will put those in my February TBR. If I finish those, I should be finishing those. They're all books that I'm pretty interested in. I just haven't really got far enough in them to put them in my wrap-up. I didn't really put them in my TBR either. There's kind of in floating lands. If you do want to keep up with my reading, I will link my Goodreads below so you can keep up with everything that I'm reading. And I also will link all of the books that I talked about. They're Goodreads link below so you can see my opinions, other people's opinions, and reviews about this book. So I'll have a decent amount of links down below for you. So any information, just go down there and read and read and read. Always link my social media and my business email and all of that fun stuff down below. So anything you want to follow, anywhere you want to find me, should be linked down below. But yeah, I will leave everything linked below that you need to know about anything, basically. So that does it for my January wrap-up. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys in my next video.